He was just a single dad volunteering at a modest community center, barely holding things together while helping other kids find their balance. But one ordinary afternoon, when a quiet boy reached out his hand in the middle of a dance session, something happened that no one in the room expected. Not the boy, not the father, and definitely not the woman watching silently from the shadows. Sometimes the smallest moments carry the power to change everything. If stories like this speak to your heart, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We share real emotional and uplifting stories that remind us all what truly matters. Now, let's begin. Single dad let a disabled boy lead a dance step, not knowing the billionaire mother was watching. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long, uneven shadows on the scuffed floor of the Brooklyn Community Center. The stereo, a battered old speaker patched with duct tape, thumped out a slow, jazzy rhythm that echoed off the cracked walls. It wasn't much, but for Noah Carter this little room was a sanctuary. "All right, Eli, nice and slow. 1, 2. Noah's voice was calm, rhythmic. His son, Eli, just 8 years old, stepped forward carefully, his left leg dragging slightly behind. The boy's eyes never left his father's. Around them, 5 other children moved to the beat, some in wheelchairs, others with braces, one with a prosthetic leg. They weren't graceful, but they were moving, laughing, trying, and to Noah that meant everything. The door creaked open behind him and he glanced up. Another child stood there, alone. The boy was maybe 10, thin, stiff in posture, with perfectly ironed clothes that looked out of place in this scrappy setting. His right leg was encased in a sleek orthopedic brace, gleaming metal, hugging tight against designer pants. His arms stayed locked at his sides and his face, pale, serious, betrayed no emotion. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Just stood at the threshold like a ghost, unsure of its welcome. "Hi there," Noah said, gently walking over. "I'm Mr. Noah. This is our Tuesday dance class. Want to join us?" The boy shook his head, once quick and firm. "That's okay," Noah said. "You can watch if you'd like." "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. Then, almost a whisper, "Jamie." Noah smiled and knelt so they were at eye level. "Nice to meet you, Jamie. I'm glad you're here." From behind the glass door, someone else watched a woman in a dark coat and large sunglasses. She stood just far enough back that no one noticed. Her hands were tucked into her coat pockets, but they trembled slightly. Claire Westwood didn't do community centers. She didn't do peeling linoleum or flickering lights, but today she did all of that because her son had stopped speaking to his therapists. Again. Noah turned back to Eli, letting Jamie stay in the corner, untouched, unpressured. That was the rule in this place. No one was forced to participate. As the music shifted into a slow, melodic swing, the children began a simple pattern Noah had taught them: 2 steps forward, pivot 1 back. Imperfect, joyful, honest. Jamie watched unmoving, until Eli, mid-spin, stumbled. He tried to catch himself, failed, and landed hard on his knees. The music halted. Noah was by his side in an instant. "You okay, champ?" Eli grinned, wiping a smear of dust from his chin. Didn't fall. I danced into the floor. Laughter broke out around the room, but something else happened, too. Jamie, the boy who wouldn't dance, took a step forward. A small one, measured, metal scraping gently against tile. Noah noticed, but didn't speak, didn't gesture. Just met Jamie's eyes and gave the subtlest nod. Then he did something no one expected. He walked toward Jamie, and he said 6 words that changed everything you lead. "I'll follow you." A hush fell over the room. The other kids stopped. Jamie blinked. "But I don't know how." "You don't need to," Noah said softly. "Just move. However you want, I'll match you." It took nearly a minute for Jamie to raise his arm, another 30 seconds to extend it fully toward Noah. And when he did, it was like time held its breath. Noah reached out gently, placing his hand in Jamie's. And then, Jamie stepped. It wasn't graceful. His brace caught slightly. His left foot lagged. but Noah matched its same pace, same rhythm. No correction, no instruction. Just presence. Just trust. Claire, behind the glass, felt her knees weaken. She hadn't seen her son hold someone's hand since the funeral. Hadn't seen him lead anything, not even a sentence, since the day he watched his father's plane disappear on the news. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. Inside the room, the music resumed, and Jamie, now emboldened, took another step. The children began to clap. Noah let the boy guide the pace, slow and uneven. Each step an act of defiance against silence. Each motion an echo of something long buried. They danced for maybe a minute, but for everyone watching it, felt like a lifetime. When the music ended, Jamie let go, hands trembling. "Thank you," he said. And Noah, voice steady, replied, "No. Thank you, Jamie." That was brave. Jamie returned to his spot by the wall. Still quiet, still unsure, but different now, like a candle that had flickered once and would never fully go out. Claire turned away before anyone could see her cry. That night, in her penthouse suite overlooking Manhattan, Claire replayed the scene on her phone, a short video she had taken meant to be forgotten. But as she watched her son move with a stranger who had never read a file, never seen a diagnosis, never asked about prognosis, only extended a hand, she whispered something she hadn't said in years. "Thank you." The next morning, Noah received a message from a private number. Westwood Tower, 52nd floor, 10 a.m. He stared at the text, confused. He had no idea the woman behind the glass had been the billionaire CEO of one of the most powerful investment firms in the country. He only knew that Jamie the boy who wouldn't dance had taken a step, and that step had just changed everything. Claire Westwood did not cry in public. Not at funerals, not at boardrooms, not even at her husband's memorial when the cameras panned in on her flawless black dress and stoic expression. The world saw a composed widow, a steel magnolia standing amid grief and power. That's who she became after Daniel's accident, an empire in heels. But as she stood outside that community center with one hand pressed to her mouth and the other clenched tightly around her purse strap, Claire Westwood, billionaire, CEO, Wall Street titan, felt her composure cracking. She hadn't expected to stay. The plan had been simple. Drop Jamie off, wait in the car, check the clock, and take him home after 30 minutes of movement therapy. Another checkbox on the long list of recovery attempts, another quiet failure. But then she saw it. Jamie. Standing. Jamie. Reaching. Jamie. Leading. And that man with the warm eyes and patient silence who didn't flinch or correct or direct, only followed, who knelt to her son's level like he wasn't broken, like he wasn't some project to be fixed, but someone worth listening to. Claire had seen 1,000 professionals. Some wore expensive suits and spoke in long strings of medical jargon. Others wore polo shirts and forced smiles. All of them looked at Jamie with a kind of professional pity. None of them, not one, ever offered their hand and said, "You lead." Back in the car, she stared out the window as Jamie sat beside her, unusually quiet but not withdrawn, alert, processing. His fingers traced the hem of his pants, a subtle rhythm like he was remembering the beat of the music. "Did you like it?" she asked. Jamie shrugged, which in his language was a yes. "Would you?" "Want to go back?" Another shrug. Then, softly, "Maybe." Claire turned away, hiding the sudden sting in her eyes. Maybe was a triumph in Jamie's world. The next morning, Claire's driver pulled into the private underground garage of Westwood Tower, a 92-story steel and glass fortress that she had commissioned herself, built to intimidate and inspire. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished floors as she stepped into the private elevator, her expression unreadable. She didn't waste time. By 8:45 a.m., her chief of staff had already tracked down the name of the man from the community center, Noah Carter, and everything else there was to know about him. Former high school PE teacher, widowed, single father, left teaching after his wife's death, started working odd jobs to care for his son. Now volunteers part-time at a community center offering dance and movement classes to kids with disabilities. He had no clinical degree, no certifications, no PhDs. But Claire couldn't stop seeing the way Jamie had smiled, the way he had stepped. So at 9:15 a.m., she made a decision, a rare one. At precisely 10:00 a.m., the elevator doors on the 52nd floor slid open and Noah Carter stepped into another world. He'd shaved, worn the one blazer he had left from his teaching days. His nerves were barely concealed as he took in the reception area, all white marble and steel accents with an abstract chandelier that looked like frozen lightning suspended above a leather seating arrangement no one dared to sit on. A receptionist greeted him with clinical indifference. "Mr. Carter. Ms. Westwood will see you now." He was led through mirrored corridors past glass offices filled with people in tailored suits whispering into Bluetooth headsets. They all glanced at him. None smiled. Then the double doors opened. Claire stood at the window back to him, arms folded as if contemplating the weight of the city she could probably buy in thirds. "Mr. Carter," she said without turning. Her voice was even practiced. "Ms. Westwood," he replied, feeling oddly like a student sent to the principal's office. She turned then, and for the first time Noah saw her clearly. Not the sunglasses, not the coat, just a woman. Younger than he'd expected, sharper, and, beneath the armor, exhausted. "Thank you for coming." He nodded slowly. "You didn't give me much choice." A flicker of something crossed her face, amusement fair point. "Please sit." Noah hesitated, then lowered himself into a sleek chair that felt like it cost more than his car. Claire remained standing. "I saw what you did with my son yesterday. I didn't do anything Noah said. He did." "You led him," she corrected. Noah said nothing. Claire moved to a side table and picked up a slim folder. "I've read your background. I know about your wife, your son, your work. Is this a job interview?" "In a way," Claire said. "I want to offer you a position, a full-time one, with Jamie." Noah blinked. "As what? As a therapeutic companion, guide, whatever you want to call it. You connected with him, and that's more than any specialist has done in 2 years." Noah shook his head. "I'm not a therapist." "Exactly," Claire said. "You're not trying to fix him. That's why he responded." Noah exhaled slowly. "And what happens when it stops working? When I don't have magic answers?" Claire stepped closer. For the first time, her voice lost its edge. "I don't need magic. I need something. I'm running out of options." Noah studied her. Under the sharpness, the poise, the authority was a mother who was scared to death. He looked away, voice quieter. "Your son doesn't need a program. He needs room, space to be seen, and people who follow instead of lead." Claire's jaw tightened. "I can pay you 3 times what you make now." "No. 4. I'm not for sale, Ms. Westwood." Silence settled like mist between them. Then Claire asked softly, "What do you want?" Noah stood. "I want you to come back. Bring Jamie. No cameras, no staff, just you. Sit in that plastic chair in the back and watch him be a kid." Claire stared at him, stunned. "You want me to sit in a folding chair?" "Yeah," Noah said, walking to the door. "I think your son deserves to see his mother follow him for once." He left without looking back, and for the first time in a very long time, Claire Westwood didn't know what to say. Noah didn't tell anyone about the meeting. Not Sophia, not the other volunteers, not even Eli. Partly because he wasn't sure it had actually happened. The moment he stepped back outside Westwood Tower back into the hum of honking taxis and the scent of hot dog carts, the gleaming lobby and polished marble floors seemed like a dream. Or maybe a test. One he'd passed by walking away. Still all night his thoughts returned to the way Claire Westwood had stood rigid but trembling just beneath the surface. A woman who had spent so long leading that she no longer knew how to follow. Noah had seen it before. In parents, in teachers, even in himself once. But he hadn't expected her to actually show up. and he definitely hadn't expected her to return in silence. Tuesday, 4:03 p.m. The center buzzed with life children stretching on mats, a playlist of soft beats pulsing from the corner speaker, the unmistakable clatter of wheelchairs bumping over tile. Noah stood at the edge of the room rolling his shoulders as he watched Eli and two other kids practice a pivot move. They were off beat, but they were laughing. That mattered more. Then the door creaked open. No announcement, no chauffeur, no heels on marble. Just Claire. She wore jeans and a navy sweater. No jewelry, no sunglasses, no armor. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple twist, and she carried Jamie's backpack herself. Jamie shuffled in behind her, his usual stiffness softer now, as if some invisible burden had been set down. Noah raised an eyebrow. Back for more. Jamie nodded once. That same silent language. Claire stood awkwardly at the door. "Where should I—" Noah pointed. "There's an empty chair by the window." The folding chair in question had seen better decades. The vinyl was cracked. One leg wobbled. It looked absurd beneath the presence of someone who usually sat in $3,000 ergonomic leather. But Claire walked to it and sat without a word. And stayed. Jamie didn't join right away. He watched First Shoulder's tight hands clenched. But when Noah crouched next to him and asked want to try again, Jamie surprised everyone. He said, "Can I show Eli something?" Noah didn't answer with words. He simply smiled and motioned for space. The music shifted to a mellow beat. Jamie took Eli's hand, gently guiding him into a slow, simple pattern. Noah watched with pride, but didn't intervene. Claire sat still, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She didn't reach for her phone. She didn't speak. She just watched. And for the first time in months, Jamie looked up and met her gaze. It lasted only a moment, but it was enough. After class, Noah was wiping down mats when Claire approached. "I don't understand this place," she said simply. Noah chuckled, not looking up. "You're not supposed to." Claire crossed her arms. "There's no structure, no measurements, no targets. Wrong. There's one goal movement that belongs to the child." She glanced toward Jamie, who was now laughing with Eli over a shared packet of gummy bears. "My son hasn't laughed like that since before the accident," she said quietly. Noah paused, looked at her. "What happened to him?" Claire hesitated. She wasn't used to explaining herself, but somehow in this cluttered room with peeling paint, honesty came easier. "Car crash. Drunk driver ran a red light. Daniel, my husband, was driving. He didn't make it. Jamie was in the back seat." Noah's face softened. "I'm sorry. I've spent 2 years trying to fix him. Specialists, clinics, equipment. I built a therapy suite in our apartment." Her voice trembled, but nothing worked. He kept pulling away. "I thought he was angry at me." "He might be," Noah said gently. Claire blinked. "Excuse me, that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. But he lost a father, and somewhere in the middle of your grief he probably lost part of you too." Claire said nothing. Then Noah added, "You can't parent from a glass tower." She looked up sharply. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't judging. Just telling the truth. Later that evening, Claire sat at her kitchen island watching Jamie work quietly on a Lego spaceship. The penthouse was silent, save for the hum of the city below. Her assistant had emailed twice about board matters. A shareholder call needed rescheduling. Her legal team had questions about an investment round. All unanswered. Claire watched Jamie attach a small-piece tongue between his teeth in concentration. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a CEO. She felt like a mother trying to remember how to be one. She walked to the couch and sat eyes on the city skyline. Then she pulled out her phone and sent one short message. "We'll be back Thursday." The next morning, Noah found a white envelope taped to the door of the community center. No name, just a return address, Westwood Tower. Inside was a check, made out not to him, but to the center. $50,000. No note, no instructions, just the money. Noah smiled, then folded the envelope and tucked it in his back pocket. The community center smelled faintly of disinfectant and peanut butter crackers. It was the kind of scent that clung to old tile and second-hand couches, imperfect, familiar, oddly comforting. Noah Carter stood by the stereo in the far corner of the multi-purpose room, flipping through a playlist on his phone while glancing at the clock. 3:59 p.m. He'd swept the floors himself that morning, rearranged chairs into a loose semicircle, and taped fresh paper stars on the wall that read, in crooked marker, "Every step counts." Eli had helped, sort of. Mostly he'd danced around with a broom like it was a sword. Now he was sitting cross-legged with two other kids, teaching them how to make noise by snapping rubber bands against plastic cups. Not exactly on the curriculum, but Noah wasn't a fan of rigid agendas. At exactly 4:00 p.m., the front door creaked. Claire Westwood entered. No sunglasses today, no sleek updo, just a gray cardigan and jeans, and Jamie trailing behind her, his backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. He wore a t-shirt with a faded astronaut on the front and a single knee brace that peeked out under his shorts. He walked a little faster this time. Claire hesitated in the doorway, holding his bag. Noah gave her a nod. Same chairs open. She didn't reply, but she walked straight to the back and sat this time with less stiffness, less self-consciousness. She even tucked one ankle behind the other as if settling in. Jamie didn't linger at the edges like before. He walked up to Eli and said, "Want to show me that thing again?" Eli lit up. "You mean the rocket spin?" Jamie nodded. They disappeared into the center of the room as the music kicked in a slow, funky rhythm that invited movement but didn't demand it. Noah kept his distance at first, letting the kids pair off naturally. A girl in a wheelchair practiced side pushes in time with the beat. A boy with a prosthetic leg hopped cautiously in a line of improvised steps. Jamie and Eli moved in a circle, then in opposite directions like orbiting moons. Claire watched all of it with wide, careful eyes. She looked unsure, as if trying to figure out where this place fit in the map of her life. Noah walked over, handing her a plastic cup of lukewarm coffee. She accepted it silently. "He's loosening up," Noah said quietly. Claire didn't respond right away. Then she murmured, "It's strange. What is he never liked dance? He used to cry at weddings." Noah shrugged. "We don't call this dance. We call it movement. That way, no one's wrong." She gave a small, reluctant smile. "That's a clever trick." "It's not a trick," Noah said gently. "It's just a better frame." Claire looked down at her coffee. "Do you ever feel like—" She trailed off, then started again. "After the accident, I kept trying to get back to normal. I put him in every program, followed every expert's advice. But it was like chasing something that no longer existed, like trying to step back into a room that had already burned down." Noah looked at her carefully. "So, you rebuilt the building." She nodded. "With higher walls, fireproof glass, and no doors." Claire turned her head to him sharply, but Noah wasn't accusing, just observing. "I'm not saying that to judge," he added. "I did the same thing with Eli. After his mom died, I pulled him out of school, kept him close, protected him from everything." Claire's voice dropped. "Did it work? No. But it made me feel safer. That's the trap." She let out a slow, tired breath. "I was a good mother before. I know I was." "You still are," Noah said. "You just forgot that sometimes love doesn't look like protection. Sometimes it looks like permission." Claire blinked. She didn't have a response to that. Not yet. Meanwhile, Jamie had initiated something completely unexpected. He was leading a pattern. Not copying, not following. Leading. He clapped once spun in place, stepped to the side. The other kids, uncertain at first, began to mimic him. Eli got it first, then the girl in the chair spun with her wheels, adapting the movement. A quiet rhythm built, playful and broken and beautiful. Noah noticed it, then pointed subtly so Claire would too. Jamie didn't look back to see if she was watching. He didn't need to. Claire watched with one hand covering her mouth. The boy, who once refused to move unless directed by an adult who hadn't spoken voluntarily to appear in months, was now conducting a small universe with his body. One of the assistants, Sophia, whispered from the doorway, "You seeing this?" "I'm seeing." "It?" Noah replied softly. Jamie clapped once more and the movement ended with laughter. One of the kids shouted, "Let's do it again." Jamie blushed, surprised, but he nodded. After class, Claire lingered. Most parents had come and gone, but she waited near the door as Jamie packed up his things. He chatted quietly with Eli, comparing drawings they'd scribbled during break time. Noah joined her. "He did great today." Claire nodded. "I saw something in him I haven't seen in years." "It's been there," Noah said. "You just couldn't see it through the glass." Claire looked at him. Her voice was softer now. "Do you believe this place can actually change him?" "No," Noah replied. "But I believe it can remind him who he already is." She held his gaze. There was a pause, not awkward, just heavy with meaning. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to him. "What's this A list?" Claire said. "Of people you need to talk to. Media contacts, funders, some pediatric therapists who don't rely on outdated models. If you want to expand this center, I can help." Noah looked at the paper, then back at her. "Why are you doing this?" She looked over at Jamie, who was now showing Eli how to balance a toy on his wrist. "Because I think I was wrong," she said, "about a lot of things." Noah didn't say thank you. He just nodded. And in that moment, Claire Westwood didn't feel like a billionaire or a CEO or a widow. She felt like a mother. And that, for the first time in a long time, felt like enough. Noah didn't need to check the clock anymore. By now, he knew the exact rhythm of their Tuesdays and Thursdays, knew the sound of Claire's careful footsteps as she entered the center, the quiet way Jamie now peeled off on his own to join the other kids without looking back, knew that Claire no longer sat rigidly in the corner but leaned in, elbows on knees, eyes softening. But this Thursday was different. The air buzzed before anyone even arrived. Jamie had asked earlier that week with a seriousness unusual for him if he could try something during class. Not just dancing, he'd said. "I want to show them something I made." Noah hadn't asked questions. He'd just nodded. "Your room. Your rules." And now, as the kids gathered and the music began, Jamie walked to the center of the room holding a folded piece of paper. He opened it, placed it on the floor, and turned to the others. "It's a pattern," he said, louder than usual. "A new one." "I drew it." The other kids watched with curiosity as he pointed to each mark. Arrows, circles, stops. "It goes like this," he added, then began to move. Noah leaned against the wall, arms crossed, and watched. This wasn't mimicry. It wasn't play. This was choreography. The steps weren't precise, but they had intention. Each motion was an invitation to join, to try to trust. And they did. Eli followed first, hopping slightly to match Jamie's awkward right leg brace. The girl in the chair rolled her wheels over the drawn lines and grinned when Jamie pivoted toward her. Another boy ducked under a pretend bridge Jamie created by raising his arms in an arch. Noah didn't speak, didn't step in. He simply watched. And at the back of the room, so did Claire. After class, Claire lingered longer than usual. She waited until Jamie and Eli had wandered off to a table in the back, drawing superheroes on construction paper. Then she walked over to Noah. "You didn't guide him at all," she said, not accusing, more like wondering. Noah sipped his coffee. "Wasn't my dance to lead." Claire looked toward the kids. "You just trusted he could." "I followed," he said simply. "It's harder than it sounds." Claire was quiet for a long moment. "You know, after the accident, every expert I spoke to said structure was everything, that Jamie needed control discipline, a clear therapeutic plan." Noah nodded. "That's the traditional model. I followed it religiously. Every instruction, every chart, every measurable milestone. But I never thought to ask what he wanted." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she turned her face slightly embarrassed by the sudden emotion. I kept thinking if I just worked harder, found better doctors, threw more money at the problem. Noah gently interrupted. You tried to rescue him with the tools you understood. Most people do. Claire looked at him. And what did you understand, Loss? He said without flinching. I understood that pain makes you want to control the uncontrollable, but the more you grip, the more things slip. He paused, voice softening. I didn't need Eli to be okay right away. I just needed him to feel safe enough to try. Claire looked at Jamie again, now helping another boy fold a paper boat. He used to be terrified of failure, she whispered. Most kids are, Noah said, until they realize failing doesn't mean falling apart. That's what following does. It tells them, you get to choose, and I'll be here either way. Claire looked at him, really looked. Is that how you raised your son? Noah exhaled slowly. It's how I started raising him after I nearly broke him trying to do everything right. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the soft chaos of children trying, failing, laughing, trying again. Finally, Claire spoke. I was a very good student, she said with a hint of irony. Straight A's. Ivy League. Built my firm from the ground up. But no one teaches you what to do when your child looks at you like a stranger. Noah didn't reply. He didn't need to. She continued, softer now. I stopped being a mother and started being a project manager. Schedules, milestones, progress reports. And somewhere in there she added bitterly, I think I stopped hearing him. Noah leaned forward. He doesn't need you to hear the words. He just needs you to be in the room when he speaks them, whatever form they take. Claire looked back at Jamie, and for the first time she realized he had been speaking all along, through movement, through retreat, through hesitation, through the sheer courage of returning each week to a place that didn't offer prestige or polish-only space, and a man who knew how to wait. That evening, Claire returned home to a table full of untouched emails and a blinking red light on her answering machine. Shareholders, analysts, one international reporter wanting a quote about her sudden disappearance from a tech deal. She poured herself tea, ignored them all, and sat beside Jamie on the floor where he was laying out new dance patterns on paper with colored markers. He didn't say anything, but he shifted closer. She leaned in. No instructions. No praise, just presence. Just following. The next day, Claire made a call. Not to a therapist, not to a PR team, to her foundation director. We're launching a grant program, she said, focused on community-led child development centers. No strings attached. I'll send the outline. The director hesitated. Are we sponsoring a specific model? Claire smiled faintly. We're sponsoring the right to move freely. Noah didn't see it coming. He'd seen hundreds of moments in that room, small victories that looked like crooked smiles, trembling fingers lifted in rhythm, or a wheelchair spinning in time to an offbeat tune. But he hadn't anticipated what Jamie was about to do. Not because he doubted the boy, but because he never expected the room to stop breathing. It began like any other Thursday. The playlist pulsed gently, the children moved through their warm-up motions, and Claire sat in her now customary corner seat with a coffee cup in hand, black, no sugar. Noah was adjusting a foam balance beam for one of the younger boys when Jamie raised his hand. Everyone paused. It wasn't something he usually did. Yes, Jamie Noah asked. Jamie pointed to the speaker. Can we change the music? Noah blinked. Of course. What do you want? Jamie pulled out his phone, hesitated, then walked up and handed it to Noah. Noah read the song title. His brows lifted. You sure? Jamie nodded. I want to try something. The other kids were quiet, now watching. Claire had sat forward in her seat, elbow resting on her knee fingers to her lips. Noah connected the phone. A soft piano melody filled the room. Slow. Tender. It wasn't a song made for dancing. It was made for remembering. Jamie walked, no limped, to the center of the room, one brace on his right leg, the other left off today at his request. His movements were careful, uneven, but not hesitant. He turned to face the group and said, "I want to lead something. You don't have to do it if you don't want to." Eli stood immediately. "I'm in." One by one, the other children stood or wheeled forward. Noah didn't intervene. He felt Sophia at his side whispering, "What's happening?" But Noah already knew. Jamie had been preparing for this. Quietly, thoughtfully, he had designed a sequence, nothing formal, no lines, just movements meant to be copied, his way of saying, "This is who I am. Come with me if you want to know me." Jamie extended his left arm palm up. Eli took it. Jamie nodded and the music continued. He stepped, not smoothly, not symmetrically, but he moved, and the others followed. First Eli, then a girl with a cerebral palsy walker, then the boy with the prosthetic. Each child moved with Jamie not just behind him. They mirrored his imperfect motion, honoring its shape instead of correcting it. It was choreography not by a teacher, but by a child who had learned how to lead by first being followed. Noah felt something stir in his chest. His eyes prickled. He looked toward Claire. She was no longer seated. She had risen. One hand covered her mouth. The other was shaking. 15 seconds in, Jamie faltered. The step required a pivot when his brace resisted. He teetered just slightly, but enough for everyone to see. Claire stepped forward instinctively, but Noah raised a hand, gentle but firm. "Wait." Jamie caught himself, adjusted, then stepped again. He didn't look for help. He didn't panic. He found his own way, and the children behind him followed his lead, some skipping the pivot, others stumbling but smiling. Noah whispered, "He's improvising." Claire nodded, her hand still at her mouth. Noah added quietly, "He trusts himself now." The music ended with no applause, only silence. Not stunned, not awkward, sacred. Jamie looked around, chest rising and falling, sweat on his forehead. Then he grinned. Eli hugged him. The others clapped. Someone laughed. Jamie sat down in the middle of the room and let himself fall backward onto the mat, limbs spread out like a kid who'd just climbed Everest. Claire stepped forward slowly, her heels silent on the linoleum. "Jamie," she said softly. He turned his head to her. She knelt beside him. Not beside the mat on it. In her cashmere sweater in front of everyone. She touched his shoulder. That was beautiful. Jamie looked at her for a long second, then whispered, "I'm not scared when I'm leading." Claire's breath caught. She smiled, eyes glossy. "And I'm not scared when I'm following you." The clip was only 37 seconds long. Sophia had filmed it quietly from the corner, not to share, only to preserve. But Noah had posted it that evening on the center's private blog with permission from the parents. By morning, it had been shared 12,000 times. By noon, The Guardian, The Times, and 2 major news outlets had reached out requesting interviews. By evening, it had passed 1 million views. But none of that mattered to Jamie. What mattered was that after the video ended, the caption read, "Choreography by Jamie Westwood. Age 10. Mobility partial. Confidence growing." And just below it, a comment from a stranger read, "My daughter hasn't walked since her surgery." She just watched this and asked if she could try. Claire read it twice, then emailed the board of her foundation. Subject, "We need to talk about funding." That weekend, Claire stood in the same room again, but now there were camera crews outside the doors and a line of reporters who had been told firmly that they could not film the children without consent. Claire wasn't in the corner anymore. She stood beside Noah. She looked at him and said, "This is bigger than you thought, isn't it?" Noah nodded, and still only the beginning. She smiled. He led a step that changed the whole room. Noah looked toward Jamie, who was now teaching a new move to 2 younger kids. "No," Noah said gently. He changed the way the room moves. The spotlight didn't knock. It burst through the door. By Monday morning, the Freedom Steps website had crashed twice. Emails flooded in from school administrators, pediatric specialists, university researchers, and desperate parents, asking if there were wait lists or miracle slots for their children. Some offered donations. Others simply wrote, "Thank you for showing me what's possible." By Wednesday, Noah's phone wouldn't stop ringing, and by Friday, Claire's world split in two. It began with a headline: "Billionaire CEO's son goes viral for emotional dance." But the real story is the program. She once ignored, then another. Westwood, under scrutiny, ignored. Innovative rehab model for years now claims support, and another. Therapists criticize movement-based program as unsupervised imitation. Claire was used to bad press. She'd survived hostile takeovers, Wall Street exposés, and a brief scandal involving an offshore subsidiary she hadn't even authorized. But this felt different, because this wasn't about money. This was about her son. Inside Westwood Tower, tension pulsed like static through the halls. Claire's assistant, Nora, hovered in her doorway holding a tablet. "We have a problem," she said. Claire didn't look up from the printout in her hands, Noah's latest schedule filled with hastily arranged meetings and parent inquiries. "I'm already aware. It's the board. They've scheduled an emergency call." Claire stood. "Get them on the line." 10 minutes later, 12 faces filled her conference screen, executives, lawyers, strategists. Claire, the chairwoman, began, "You've created a media storm. You're being praised by advocacy groups and hammered by shareholders." Another voice cut in. "The Foundation's sudden reversal in funding strategy, especially for a non-clinical program, is undermining our credibility with institutional partners. Looks impulsive, emotionally driven." Claire sat calmly, hands folded. "Is that all she asked?" Dead silence. "Then, we're asking you to formally distance the company from this community center. Step down from the Foundation board if needed." Claire tilted her head. "You're asking me to step back from a project that changed my son's life." Claire, the chairwoman, said more softly, "We know it's personal, but you're not just a mother. You're the face of this company. And that's exactly why I won't back down." Her voice was calm, measured, final. "The only mistake I made," she continued, "was not supporting this center sooner. I plan to fix that, and if the board wants to remove me for that, go ahead. But make sure your press release mentions why." Another silence followed. But this time, Claire didn't wait for approval. She closed the laptop. That afternoon, she stood outside the community center, shoulders tight, wind tangling her hair. She watched children file in through the chipped blue door. Jamie walked ahead, backpack slung loose, humming to himself. He looked back at her, once grinning. Claire had to bite the inside of her cheek to keep her emotions in check. Inside, Noah was adjusting the speaker wires. He glanced up, surprised. "You came early." "I needed to be somewhere that made sense," she said. He gave her a long look. "Bad day. Crisis day." Noah walked over, motioned to the chair. "Want to sit down?" Claire exhaled. "No. I want to move." An hour later, the session ended with tired kids, sweaty brows, and a chorus of giggles. But then came the second storm. Sophia rushed in from the front door, phone in hand. "You guys need to see this." Noah took the phone. On screen was a video. Blurry. Grainy. A young therapist claiming to be a former consultant for Westwood Medical gave an interview to a mid-tier podcast saying Claire was using her son for publicity and that the Freedom Steps program was reckless and unregulated. "Parents are being fooled by sentimentality," she said. "Just because it looks emotional doesn't mean it's effective." Claire stepped closer. "What is this damage control?" Sophia whispered. "Corporate pushback, probably." Claire stared at the screen. Not because she was shocked, because she recognized the face. It was Jamie's former occupational therapist, the same one who once told him he'd never lead a movement. Noah set the phone down. He didn't speak, didn't rant, just walked to the front of the room, turned and faced Claire. "We should talk," he said. They sat alone after everyone left, sun slanting through dusty windows. Claire spoke first. "I'm sorry." "For what?" for dragging this program into the press cycle. I never meant for this to become a war." Noah leaned forward. "It's not a war, it's a spotlight, and spotlights burn." She smiled, tired. "You're good with metaphors. Comes from raising a kid who only understood the world when it was painted sideways." Claire sighed. "I wanted to help, but now I've made you a target." Noah shook his head. "You made us visible. That's different." He paused. "But now we have to make a decision." Claire nodded slowly. "How much light are we willing to stand in?" Noah glanced toward the door where Jamie's laugh still echoed faintly down the hallway. "All of it." That night, Claire issued a statement. Not through her PR team. Not through the company. Just a single post from her personal account. "My son is not a prop. He's a pioneer. The only thing reckless is believing that only experts can unlock the human spirit. We didn't need more authority. We needed more trust." The post went viral within hours. And in the middle of it all, Jamie remained oblivious, sprawled across his bedroom floor with his drawings humming his new dance step. He had no idea his mother had just challenged the corporate world on his behalf. And she didn't tell him, because for the first time in her life, Claire Westwood wasn't trying to lead a story. She was following one. The air in Noah's apartment was heavy with memory. It wasn't the kind of place you showed off. The floors creaked, the kitchen window didn't open all the way, and the living room doubled as Eli's play space and Noah's makeshift office. But the walls held stories, photos of Eli on his first tricycle finger-painted art still taped to the fridge, a pair of ballet shoes hung reverently near the door. They were Rachel's. She'd never danced professionally, but she used to waltz with Noah in the kitchen sometimes, barefoot, sometimes in mismatched socks, sometimes with a toddler clinging to one leg. Her laughter had once filled the corners of this home like warm sunlight. Now it was mostly quiet. Claire Westwood sat stiffly on the couch nursing a mug of herbal tea. She looked out of place in her tailored coat and silk scarf like someone who had accidentally stepped into a life too raw, too honest. But she didn't look uncomfortable. She looked curious. Noah joined her, setting down a plate of biscuits Eli had insisted they serve. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Claire spoke. "You used to be a teacher." Noah nodded. "High school PE. For 10 years. Why did you stop?" He looked toward the window, voice quieter now. "Rachel got sick. It was fast, aggressive. We caught it too late. I didn't want Eli growing up with strangers while I chased lesson plans." Claire said nothing, but her eyes softened. "I took some odd jobs," he continued. "Landscaping night shifts. Just enough to get by. I started volunteering at the community center because it was the one place." Eli smiled again. Claire took a long sip of her tea. "I didn't know that. I don't tell many people." She looked at the photos on the wall. One in particular caught her attention, Noah and Rachel both barefoot dancing in what looked like this very living room laughter, frozen in motion. "She was beautiful," Claire said. Noah smiled faintly. She made everything feel like music. They sat for a moment in a silence that wasn't awkward. It was reverent. Then Claire spoke again. "I used to be softer," she said. "Before Daniel died. Before I learned how quickly the world stops waiting for you to grieve." Noah glanced at her. She continued, voice lower. "I had one job: protect Jamie. I threw everything I had into building a wall around him so nothing could get in. Not pain, not fear, not failure. But I didn't realize." She trailed off. Noah finished for her. "You built the wall so high he couldn't see you anymore?" Claire's breath caught. She didn't respond, but her eyes filled quietly, stubbornly. "I thought giving him the best meant giving him control," she whispered. "But control is cold. It doesn't hold you at night. It doesn't tell you it's okay to fall." Noah nodded. "Control is armor. But love's a dance." Claire laughed softly through her tears. "Do you always talk in metaphors?" He smiled. "Only when I don't know what else to say." They sat for a while longer. Outside, rain began to tap gently against the window, and inside the soft hum of Eli's video game drifted down the hallway. The apartment felt warm, lived in alive. Claire leaned back, staring at the ceiling. You know what's ironic? What I spent years trying to make Jamie more like the kids I thought he should be? Now I just want to be more like him. Noah looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time he saw not the CEO, not the billionaire mother, not the crusader battling headlines and boardrooms, but a woman learning how to live again. You're doing better than you think, he said. She smiled. That's what Jamie said to me yesterday. Noah raised an eyebrow. He did. Claire nodded. I asked if he thought I was doing a good job lately. He shrugged and said, You're following better now. Noah laughed. I think that's his way of saying, keep going. Later that evening, as Claire prepared to leave, she stood at the door with her hand on the knob, then turned back. Noah, yeah. What if this ends? The momentum, the attention, what if it fades and we're left alone in the silence again? Noah thought for a long moment. Then he said, Then we do what dancers do between songs. Claire tilted her head. We wait, and we listen, and when the next rhythm comes, we move. Claire smiled through the sadness in her eyes. Good night, Noah. Good night, Claire. That night, Jamie lay curled in bed with his sketch pad open. Claire sat beside him, brushing hair from his forehead. What are you drawing? A new pattern? For class? No, Jamie said sleepily. For you? Claire blinked. Me? He flipped the page. A series of crooked arrows loop-de-loops and a stick figure with long hair holding the hand of a smaller figure in a wheelchair. It's called Following the Leader. Claire swallowed hard. I think you're good at it now. Jamie added, eyes already closing. Claire kissed his forehead. I'm trying, sweetheart. And for the first time in years, as she turned off the light and closed the door, Claire didn't feel like she was failing. She felt like she was becoming. It happened on a Thursday, like most miracles. The morning was uneventful. The city was humming with the usual background noise, horns, footsteps, conversations interrupted by sirens. Inside the community center, the air was filled with the light tap of sneakers on scuffed tile, laughter trailing behind little bursts of movement. Nothing signaled that anything extraordinary would happen, until Jamie asked to remove one of his braces. Noah looked up from where he was helping a boy with balance drills. You sure? Jamie nodded. Just one. I want to see if I can do it. Noah studied his face, serious, focused, steady. The kind of look he'd seen before, but rarely from someone so young. All right, Noah said. Let's sit down and do it carefully. Claire watched from the far end of the room, her heart lurching. She'd seen him try before. A few times at home, when he thought she wasn't looking, slipping the brace off, standing for half a second, then collapsing into himself with a muttered, stupid leg. He never let her help. Never let her see. But now, in a room full of other kids and their chaos, their courage, Jamie was pulling the strap loose on his own. He placed the brace beside him like it was something sacred, a marker of progress, or perhaps of goodbye. Then he stood, wobbly, right leg unsure, but upright. The room quieted. One by one, kids stopped what they were doing. Jamie took a deep breath and stepped forward. The movement was small, a half shuffle. His knee buckled, his left side overcompensated, but the step happened, unassisted, undirected. Noah took one instinctive step forward, then stopped himself. Claire's hands had flown to her mouth. She didn't breathe. Jamie reset his footing, tried again. Another step, straighter, clearer, determined. Then he smiled, wide, disbelieving, radiant. The room erupted. Not with applause. Not yet. That would have shattered the spell. It was something quieter, holier. Gasps, tears, murmurs. A stillness that vibrated with emotion. And from the corner someone whispered, He did it. Jamie turned toward his mom. I did it, he said, voice cracking. Claire stepped forward, eyes full. "You did, sweetheart. You really did." "I want to try again." Jamie said, his breath shallow but eager, and he did. 2 more steps. On the third he wobbled, and Noah was there just behind him, steadying, but not catching. "You okay?" he asked gently. Jamie nodded, still grinning. "Can I keep going?" Noah laughed. "Only if I can follow." Later, when the music played again and the other children returned to their exercises, Claire sat on the floor next to Noah. Not in a chair, not watching from the sidelines. Just there. Together. "I feel like I missed it," she said softly. "All those months trying to control everything." And he was building this moment quietly inside himself. Noah shook his head. "You didn't miss it. You helped it happen." Claire looked at him. "I don't think he needed me." Noah's voice was quiet, sure. "He needed you to believe in the step, even if you couldn't see it coming." The press found out that evening. Sophia had filmed the moment from the far corner, like always discreet, respectful. And, just like the last clip, she hadn't planned to share it. But after the kids had gone home and the volunteers were packing up, she showed it to Noah and Claire. They watched in silence. Claire's hand trembled slightly at her side. "He looks free," she said. "He is," Noah said. This time, Claire didn't hesitate. "Post it. Let the world see what freedom looks like." The video was uploaded that night under the same caption series as the last. Freedom Steps, First Unassisted Step. Jamie Westwood, age 10. Bravery unmeasurable. It didn't just go viral. It ignited something. Parents began filming their children taking their first steps in pools and backyards and therapy rooms and tagging the Freedom Steps account. Hospitals started requesting training materials. Educational podcasts asked for interviews. One nationally syndicated morning show requested to visit the center to meet the boy who taught us what courage looks like. Claire said yes, on one condition, that they film every child, not just hers, and that no one interrupt the movement. At dinner that night, Jamie sat at the table fork in one hand, sketchpad in the other. Claire placed a bowl of soup in front of him. "Eat first, then draw your revolution." Jamie grinned. "It's not a revolution." Claire leaned down, kissing his temple. "That's exactly what it is." He looked up at her. "I want to teach others now," he said, "like Mr. Noah does." Claire felt something catch in her throat. "Do you think I can?" She knelt beside him. "I think the world's already learning." Back in her bedroom, Claire opened her laptop and typed an email to her board of directors. Subject: Long-term commitment proposal. Freedom Steps expansion. She attached the latest data on inquiries, video engagement, and the growing wait list. But more importantly, she added a sentence at the end that hadn't appeared in any of her previous communications. It started with a step we didn't see coming. Now we need to build the path. She hovered over send for a second, then clicked. That night, Jamie lay in bed exhausted but smiling. Claire tucked him in, turning out the light. As she reached the door, he called softly, "Mom." "Yes, can we dance next time?" Claire turned back, eyes brimming. "I'd love that." And she knew whatever came next, whatever storm or silence, this was the step that had changed everything. Because it hadn't just been Jamie's first, it had been hers too. 3 months later, the sound of bulldozers echoed through a once-abandoned lot on the corner of Ashland and 7th. It was the kind of space most New Yorkers ignored: chain-link fences, cracked pavement, graffiti scars baked into the concrete like old pain. Now it was humming with the promise of reinvention. Claire Westwood stood beside Noah, both of them in hard hats, both squinting against the spring sun as the first foundation stakes were marked. Around them, city workers moved like ants, and in the distance a banner snapped in the wind. Future Home of Freedom Steps. Claire's heels sank slightly into the dirt, but she didn't care. "I thought I'd hate this part," she said, brushing dust off her blazer. The mess, the noise. Noah grinned. "You're learning to like chaos." She laughed. "No, but I'm learning not to fight it." Inside the trailer that served as their temporary planning office, blueprints were spread across a folding table. Sophia hovered over one, tracing her finger along the edge of a proposed mobility path that looped like a musical note. "These lines don't match traditional therapy design," one of the city contractors had said earlier. "That's the point," Claire had replied. "The center wouldn't just be functional, it would be inviting, playful, built with the input of those who would use it, children in braces, wheelchairs with speech delays, learning differences, and hearts full of rhythm that the world had failed to hear." Each room had been designed around movement autonomy. No fixed instructor zone, no standard mirror walls, just light, sound, texture, color, and freedom. Noah picked up a Sharpie and added a note to the bottom of the blueprint. "Follow their lead." Claire glanced over. "I've seen that phrase somewhere before." "It's on Jamie's sketchpad," Noah said. "He writes it at the top of every new pattern." The expansion wasn't just physical, it was spreading. 2 more cities had approved permits for similar centers. A West Coast university had offered to partner with Freedom Steps on a long-term research project. And the board of the Westwood Foundation had unanimously approved a multi-year grant to ensure that each new center would be built without profit incentives or private influence. Claire had made sure of that. She'd stepped down from all for-profit boards and redirected half her personal trust into the newly formed Freedom Fund. The press had called it radical. She called it overdue. Back at the trailer, Noah flipped through a folder of enrollment applications. "I can't keep up," he admitted. "You don't have to," Claire said. "You're not alone in this anymore." He nodded, but something tugged at him. "Sometimes I wonder," he said, "if I'm still the right person to lead it." Claire frowned. "Why?" "Because I never meant for it to be this big. It started as a place to let my kid move without being told he was doing it wrong. I don't have a business plan. I don't have a degree in administration." Claire smiled. "You have something rarer." He looked at her. "You built something that works. From love, not ego. That's the kind of leadership we need more of." Noah stared at the site again. At the steel beams. At the dust in the wind. At the small chalkboard placed beside the gate where kids had already begun writing their names, dreaming ahead of time. Jamie's name was the first. Claire's eyes followed his. "Do you remember the first day I came to the center?" she asked. "You looked like you were trying not to breathe," Noah said. She laughed. "I was. You sat in the back, arms crossed, judging everything." "I wasn't judging," Claire said, mock offended. "I was evaluating." Noah raised an eyebrow. She shrugged. "Okay, judging a little." They both laughed. Then Claire grew quiet. "You didn't ask me to change Noah. You just let me be in the room. You gave me permission to learn without shame. That's what this place does. That's what it has to keep doing." Noah nodded, throat tight. "Then we better build it right." That afternoon, Jamie came by the site with Eli and Sophia's niece Maya. The 3 of them immediately commandeered a patch of dirt and turned it into an imaginary stage. Jamie spun in one sneaker and one brace, grinning as he choreographed a silly, lopsided routine they called the Wobble Parade. Claire watched from a folding chair, her arms resting on the back of it. She wasn't hovering, just nearby. "They don't know how big this is," she said. "They don't need to," Noah replied. "They just need to know the door's open." Back at the trailer, Jamie joined them for a juice box and looked over the plans with a serious gaze. "There should be a quiet room," he said. Claire leaned down. "What kind of quiet?" "Not just no sound," Jamie said. "The kind of quiet where you don't have to explain things." Noah met Claire's eyes. Then he nodded and wrote it down. "Quiet room, a space for being not fixing." Jamie smiled. "And a dance room that plays slow songs." Claire ruffled his hair. "That one's already in the plans." Later, when the sun began to dip, casting long shadows over the new foundation, Noah stood at the edge of the lot and looked out. It wasn't the biggest center. It wasn't even centrally located. But it was theirs. Built not by architects of concrete, but by architects of courage. by the kids who dared to lead, by the parents who dared to follow, and by one boy who took a step no one expected. The grand opening of the Freedom Steps Rehabilitation Center didn't look like a press event. There were no red carpets, no celebrities, no corporate banners flapping in the wind. Instead, there were bubbles, thousands of them, blown by children in wheelchairs on crutches and braces and by those who ran freely laughing through the warm May air. The front lawn had been transformed into a celebration of movement. Sidewalk chalk murals covered the pavement with crooked suns and bright names, and someone had drawn a huge arrow leading to the front door with the words, "You belong here." Claire Westwood stood near the entrance wearing white sneakers and a soft blue dress. Her hair was down and in her arms was a clipboard she hadn't looked at in 20 minutes. Her job today wasn't to coordinate. It was to witness and to let go. Across the lawn, Jamie was at the center of a small crowd of kids demonstrating the latest version of the Wobble Parade. Eli followed close behind, mimicking Jamie's exaggerated movements. They were unsynchronized, wobbly, imperfect, and completely magnetic. Noah stepped up beside Claire, tucking his hands into the pockets of his khakis. "You didn't cry during the ribbon cutting," he said. "I saved it for the quiet part," she replied with a smile. The loud part was too beautiful. Noah turned to watch Jamie now leading 2 more children in a circle around the lawn. "He doesn't even realize this place exists because of him." Claire nodded. "And he doesn't need to." They stood in silence, breathing in the day. The building behind them glowed in the afternoon sun, full of windows, open space, and sound-absorbing panels shaped like stars. The dance studio inside shimmered with warm light. The quiet room. Jamie's idea was painted in calming shades of gray and soft green with bookshelves and beanbags and not a single instruction posted on the wall. Inside, kids moved at their own pace. Some slowly, some not at all. But no one sat still in fear. Everyone moved something. The ceremony had been short and simple. A small stage, a few words, and no list of achievements. Claire had spoken briefly. This place was never about fixing. It was about listening. And then she had handed the mic to Jamie, who held it like it might explode. He'd said only 5 words. "Thank you for following me." The applause had lasted longer than the speech. Later that afternoon, Claire walked alone through the building. Not to inspect, not to evaluate, just to be there. In the hallway near the multipurpose room, she passed a photo wall the staff had assembled snapshots of the children in motion. A girl balancing on one leg, a boy tossing a scarf into the air, Jamie in mid-spin, one brace dangling from his arm like a badge of freedom. Claire stopped at the last photo, an image of herself and Jamie seated on the floor, both laughing, their heads tilted toward each other. It had been taken by Sophia during one of their first sessions. The caption read, "True leadership isn't about who walks first, it's about who makes space for others to walk at all." Claire reached up and touched the edge of the frame. Then she whispered, "You made me better." It wasn't clear whether she was speaking to the boy or the building, or to the echo of the woman she used to be. Maybe all 3. Outside, the celebration was winding down. The sun was lower now, casting gold across the city. Kids were beginning to gather their things, but Jamie wasn't done. He ran to Noah and tugged his arm. "One last dance," he said. Noah grinned. "Your call." Jamie pointed to the center of the lawn. A few kids followed, then more. Soon, a circle had formed again. No music this time, just clapping hands and laughing voices. Jamie led. He stomped one foot, spun in place, and then, smiling, he reached out his hand toward Claire. She hesitated. Just a second. Then she stepped forward. She took his hand and let him lead. They moved together slowly, freely, joyfully. The circle grew larger. Eli joined in, then parents, then volunteers, each moving in their own imperfect way. There was no choreography. No one got it right. But no one stopped. Because in that moment, perfection wasn't the goal. Connection was. As dusk settled over the new center and the last light danced on the windows, Noah stood at the edge of the grass watching the swirl of motion. Claire came to stand beside him. "He doesn't need me to hold him anymore," she said quietly. "No." Noah agreed. "But he still needs you to be around." Claire looked at him. "That's the difference, isn't it?" Noah nodded. "That's the whole thing." Weeks later, as news of the center's success spread and new families began arriving in droves, Noah found a handwritten note tucked under the office door. It had no name, just a child's handwriting and a folded piece of lined paper. On it were 2 simple words surrounded by stars. "Thank you." Noah taped it above his desk, right next to a photograph of Jamie's very first step. Because sometimes the smallest steps are the ones that change everything. And sometimes the greatest leaders are the ones who know when it's time to let go and simply follow. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? If this story touched you in any way, share your thoughts in the comments. Your words might just inspire someone else today. And, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories like this. Stories that remind us how small acts of kindness can lead to something extraordinary. Thank you for spending this time with us. From our hearts to yours, we're so grateful you're here.